Okay, I'd like to call the Joint Special School Building Committee to order. It's Thursday, July 26, 2018. We're at the Nashua High School North Lecture Hall. The construction projects is going to be skipped tonight. We're going to go right into the joint special since there's not a lot of construction stuff going on right now, but if the clerk would call the roll. No, have prayer first and pledge allegiance. Mr. Guarino? No, he has the prayer first.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the educational affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And he also has the roll, so if you would call the roll, please.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman McCarthy.
Present.
Alderman Maliza-Golia. Alderman Jett. Alderwoman Klee. Miss Oden.
Here.
Mr. Guarino.
Here.
Mrs. Raymond.
Here.
Mr. Mosier. And Miss Porter.
Here.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a quorum. Let's see. Minutes of the previous meeting. Alderman McCarthy.
Move this minutes of the Joint Special School Building Committee meeting held, actually, I don't know that we have any, do we?
I think we just have the May one. June was
Oh,
canceled.
Thursday, May 24th, 2018, be accepted, placed on file, and the reading be suspended.
Okay, the motion is to accept the minutes of the meeting of the joint special on May 22nd, 24th, 2018. Waive the reading and place them on file. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Remarks by the chairman. Thank you everyone for being here this evening. We have a couple items to cover tonight, and we will address those very shortly. Remarks by school administration. Anything that you, not the items, but.
Nope.
Well, we'll get to the items that you have to cover. And Mr. Smith is not here. And by the way, Alderman Maliza-Golia is out of town, so she couldn't be with us this evening, and Alderman Klee.
Has a medical issue.
Okay. So, Construction Projects Committee report, I don't think we have any to report on.
Nope.
Okay, items for discussion and approval. You're up.
All right. First, we have the
Identify yourself first, whoever was taking notes. So.
Chris Lassard, Plant Operations Department, on behalf of Director Sean Smith. We have an invoice for A&M Roofing Services for the work they're doing over at Fairgrounds Middle School. We're requesting that we pay the invoice amount of $248,102.
Okay, would somebody like to make that motion? Alderman McCarthy?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
Motion on the floor is to pay the invoices for the Fairgrounds Middle School roofing project to A&M Roofing Services LLC in the amount of $248,102. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay.
The other item we had was a request to approve additional work with the roof at that school. Mr. Smith was recommending that we spend $134,000 on 2 projects. One being alternate number 3, which was $8,000 that will provide 3 inside access ladders at the gym, the tech ed, and locker room roofs, giving the school a total of 4. ladders, which would certainly help getting access to the roof with all the different levels of the roofing at that school. The second amount was the amount of $126,000 to replace the roof above the tech ed classrooms. As said in his note, this was in the original bid documents as alternate one, along with several other roof sections, and this covers the roofing in most need of replacement.
Okay, Alderman McCarthy?
I would move to award bid alternates numbers 1 and 3 in the amounts of $126,000 and $8,000 respectively.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to accept the addition to the project. Award bid for alternate number 3 is $8,000 for the access ladders, and the other is the award of $126,000 to replace the roof above the tech ed classrooms. Is there any questions? Yes.
Thank you. I'm curious about our contingency, because that leaves only $16,000, and we still have, I think, like $700,000 worth of work left to finish. So I'm just curious about if Mr. Lassard or Mr. Smith feels like there's still enough of a cushion left over.
From what it might be best to ask Mr. Smith, but my understanding is that there hasn't been any hiccups in the project so far, and he felt comfortable with going forward with these alternates.
Typically, the issues we run into on roofing projects is when they take the old roof off. And that's when they run into things that dig into contingencies. And they've already done that, I believe.
That is my understanding.
And they've already ordered and received all the materials, so they're pretty well along as far as issues with contingency. And I think the ladders improve the access to the roof, which they've had issues with over the years. And we always wanted to do that portion of the roof originally, but didn't have the money, so they put it in contingency and readdress it at this time.
No, I agree 100%, especially in the winter. Having multiple areas of egress makes sense to me than instead of having people walk all over the slippery roofs. So
Okay.
just wanted to make sure.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Lassard?
The next item on the agenda relates to the middle school construction project. We're looking to basically release the request for proposals for architectural design services as well as construction management services for the middle school project. You've probably noted, if you looked at the document, that the dates are coming up fairly quick and need to be changed. My understanding is that Mr. Smith wanted to release these at the last meeting, but I guess that was canceled. He said to assure you that he will make those changes on Monday before releasing the document.
That's good, because the initial release was June with a 1 August response, which wouldn't have given him much time. Alderman McCarthy?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments on it, and things I'd like to see addressed before it goes out. The first one was going to be that the dates of the tours have come and gone, so I think we'll have to change that. In the background information, I don't think it correctly expresses the emphasis on all 3 of the middle schools. Clearly, the lion's share of the work for the architect and construction manager is around Elm Street or alternative, but I think we want to make sure from a program standpoint they understand we're looking for a holistic solution to middle school capacity. So if you can just touch up that section. Second, in the architectural, the construction manager RFP, there's a section on form of agreement, section 6, and it references AIA A133, which we don't actually use intact. We make a lot of modifications to it. So what I'd actually ask you to do is contact legal and get either Steve or Celia to write a paragraph to replace that on that they're comfortable with expresses what we do, because we strike the mediation section in its entirety from both the architect and the construction manager's contracts. And that goes for both, although I did not see that form of agreement section in the architect RFP, so we should add it there as well.
Okay.
And I think it's lastly, given the scope of the project, we may be inclined to look at owner-controlled insurance program again, rather than having the subs bid in insurance. So I would ask that the construction managers comment on their experience with owner-controlled insurance programs.
Okay. I will definitely get that to Mr. Smith.
Okay. That's similar to comments I had. I did take a note that the population of the 3 schools, it's 2,381 students across all 3 middle schools. And if you divide that by 3, it's 795 students. Should we at some point be earmarking a number of students per school in the design, if we're trying to balance all 3 schools?
I would not want to do that in the RFP. I think that's one of the questions to answer.
Okay,
So,
all right. Just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with that. But that's probably something the Board of Ed ought to be thinking about as well. Do we design all 3 for 800 students? Yes.
Yeah, I think last time we discussed it, the idea was to, if we build a new building, to have some equity as far as enrollment between the 3, instead of making one building with like many students and then little. But I think as we move forward, we'll have to look at enrollment numbers and all that fun stuff before we know exactly what that number should be.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any questions relative to the 2 RFPs? Yes, Mr. Carino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, I've been looking at the scope, and I know it says schematic design. My question is about site design, site access, and circulation, traffic circulation, because my kids went to Sunset Heights, and they redid the whole parking lot and the site design, so this traffic circulation goes a lot better, and it's not, when before and after school, parents are not parked, and and the traffic is backed right out into the streets, so they did a really good job at Sunset Heights, but they did it after the fact, after the buildings are built. So we're building a brand-new building. The worst scenario that I don't want to see is that when we build the building, the first day of class, there's a giant traffic jam, people trying to get in and out of the site. So do these services include, I hope these services include site design, traffic circulation, but also other access to the site by foot, or, I know it's out in the middle of, practically in the middle of nowhere, but potential sidewalks and potential bicycle access. So I'd like to see on day 1 that we have good site access and good circulation and safe circulation also. Those are my comments.
Alderman McCarthy?
yeah, well, schematic design includes the production of the site plan, which in fact would include those things.
Probably be looked at all 3 schools. Yes, Mrs.
How
Raymond?
far out does that like traffic pattern component of the site plan go? Because I was, Mr. Gorino and I were looking on a map actually earlier this week about the potential site, and it looks like you can access it from like the 111A side, or you can access it coming down Spitbook Road and over past Bicentennial. And that Bicentennial stop sign is already congested in the mornings. And so I'm just curious, how far out would the site design go, and then at what point does the city have to pick up and do a study?
Alderman McCarthy?
Well, the site plan covers the site itself. There is typically a traffic analysis that goes with it that would discuss issues like that. I think there may be some other plan information from studies that HTA and HSI have done for us on the Spitberg corridor that would be used in those as well.
Right, so when it comes to the actual school property, that will be part of this plan. They will address, what ought to be looked at by the city outside of that, and the outside portion will be the city's responsibility. Okay. We're joined by Alderman Jettie at 7:16. Since we had very little to discuss this evening, we skipped the joint special, the construction went right to the joint special. And we also didn't have several of the members of the construction committee here, so anyway. So, we have just talked about the Fairground Middle School roofing project, which is proceeding along very well, and we authorized two options that we had from the beginning proposal for the roofing project. One, to do another portion of the roof for $126,000, and also $8,000 for better access ladders to the roof, leaving $16,000 in contingency. So that was passed a couple minutes ago. And on the middle school project, we had comments on both the RFPs for the architectural design services and construction management services. Things like the dates have to change because the release was on there said June. Well, we missed that. So, but Mr. Smith, when he comes back from vacation, that'll be the first thing he does, and he releases this. And Alderman McCarthy had a couple of other suggestions, corrections to the RFP that one has to do with something that we quote in the RFP that we adhere to. The city takes a different slant on it, so legal is going to take another stab at that.
That was the question the dates was a question I was going to raise. It looked like it had already been let out, and
No,
they have got to return it by next week. It just didn't seem.
Originally, they were looking to release it in June, but we just passed the bonding and the budget committee last Monday night, which I assume will proceed through in August. So we didn't want to get the cart before the horse. We had to have the money to do it before we can actually ask somebody to do something. Okay.
So is it going to wait for Mr. Smith to come back, or is?
Well, Mr. Smith will be back Monday, and he's going to make the changes that we talked about, including the dates, obviously. The date of the site surveys, and the date of the release, and the date of the having them back to us. So they will all change in both of the RFPs, and then they will go out Monday.
Okay, so he's authorized to do that when he gets back.
With the changes that we talked about,
Okay.
and Mr. Lassard has all of that. Mr. Alderman McCarthy.
Well, he isn't authorized yet, but I will move with the
Yeah.
changes that we discussed this evening to approve the release of the RFP for construction manager and
Right.
architect for the middle school project.
Okay, yeah, we were just getting to that when you came in. So, yes, the motion on the floor is to approve the release of the RFP with the corrections that were discussed at this meeting for the architectural design services and the construction management. Are there any additional questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Lassard, go forth and prosper with.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, so comments by members of the public? Nope. Comments by committee members? Mrs. Oden?
I just think we should all wish Alderman McCarthy a happy birthday.
Ah, That secret didn't last long. Happy birthday, Alderman McCarthy. How's it feel to be 29?
He doesn't remember.
Whoa! Ooh, gazinga. Okay. Any other comments by committee members? Yes, Alderman Jettie.
I just want to apologize. I was at the Board of Public Works meeting, and we were talking about recycling, which is a subject near and dear to my heart, and I didn't want to leave that.
No problem, no problem.
So,
Alderman McCarthy,
I take great pleasure in the fact that Mick Jagger is 11 years older than I am.
okay.
He still seems to be going strong.
Ah, yeah. So I don't believe we need a non-public. Is there a motion? Oh, Mrs. Oden.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 7:21.